Hello, my name is Connie Boyer, Mayor of Fairfield, and today my guest is Lieutenant Kinsella, part of our police department. I'm going to do a quick update about what's happening at the city, but I want to spend most of my time today with Ms. Kinsella, and really, she's preparing for retirement, so we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
But the first thing I really want to mention is there's a lot going on at the city. City staff is very busy, but one thing is coming up starting on Monday, June 3rd. We have hired a seasonal person. His name is Mr. Tyrell Curtis, young man that is going to be actually going door to door and talking to citizens about what kind of pipes they have in their home next to their water meters. There is a lead and copper rule which was established by the EPA in 2021, and we have to comply with that. So some people may remember that there was a survey mailed out in the spring and summer of 2021. Apparently we got about 600 of the 4,000 responses needed. So we've got to do a little more digging. So again, starting June 3rd, that's this coming Monday, Tyrell will be going out door to door and find out where your water meter is, because he's going to have to go and actually test those pipes to see what they're made out of. And it may be in your basement, it may be, well, I don't know, outside the house, I don't know, we're not really sure. It just depends on the houses, how old the houses are and that kind of thing. So I just want to give everybody a heads up that that's going to start.
What's Tyrell going to be wearing so that people know that he's...
Good point. He will be wearing identification. So, photo badge, vest, and he'll be in a city vehicle. So you should be able to recognize him with all those things. It'll say City of Fairfield on it.
And I think the city will probably know what part of the city that he's targeting that day. So
Correct.
If they have any questions, they could always call City Hall and verify that he is who he says he is.
Yep. Sounds great. Thanks for pointing that out. Highway 1 South, all done. Wrap that up. Yay, finally. Now we just have to wait for the east side of town.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Wait till fall. And there is a little construction going on at 9th and Jefferson. There's a water main replacement there. And of course, they're going to start digging again, I believe, when the pool opens. So that's kind of a drag, but that's just the nature of the beast. And so, let's get to the main part of our program today, which is Lieutenant Kinsella. And first of all, thank you for coming. Second of all, and most importantly, I just want to express my appreciation for your career here in Fairfield and how you've served our community so admirably. I know that the young people, because we do have a lot of young officers, are going to miss you when you're gone. She's just a wealth of knowledge, and again, thank you isn't enough, but I just don't know how to say it other than that, and say we really do appreciate all that you've done for our city, and we wish you the best going forward. So why don't you tell us about when your retirement's coming up and kind of what your next plans are?
So I'm retiring it'll be 31 years when I retire in October. Trick or treat is my last official working day. I will be done before then. I'm going to take vacation and ride vacation out. My plans are to move to Texas so I can play tennis, ride my bike, and row.
Cool.
And enjoy my retirement.
There you go.
And
Just have
not be
lots of
cold.
fun.
And not be cold.
And not be cold.
Not be cold.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds like a good plan.
Yep.
Good plan.
Yep. So
Well, again, we wish you all the best there and enjoy, and hope it's a lot of fun.
I certainly hope so. Come visit. It'll be a good time.
Yeah,
So,
you'll probably have friends come visit you in the wintertime.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But starting in the police department, that wasn't sort of your first gig, though, right? Weren't you?
No. I graduated from high school here. My parents moved here when I was like 3, and from Des Moines, and when my dad got a job for the DOT. And then I graduated from here, went to college at Northeast Missouri State University. I went through ROTC there, and then went into the Army for 6 years, active duty. Was in Desert Storm, was in Georgia, Washington State, Korea twice. And then when I got out of the military, I came back here and got hired.
So, did you do any military police work at that time?
No, I was actually a communications officer.
Okay.
So I got out as a captain, applied several places, and then got a job here. And I was actually the second female that's been hired with the city, the first one to make it off probation. So I don't think the people knew what to do with me when I got here.
Well, you were, leading the way, so to speak, and forging that path for other ladies.
I think it was different then because, it wasn't a norm in the Midwest to have female officers. In the big cities, it kind of goes West Coast, East Coast, and then kind of makes its way to the Midwest. And so we were kind of just getting started hiring female officers. So it was different. I think it was different for me, too, because I wasn't a young kid just starting off. Mm-hmm. I had life experience. I had some experience coming in. I grew up here, so that helped a little bit. But I think it was an easier transition for me than for somebody that's 18 years old and trying to figure out what they truly want to do.
So at what point did you say, I want to be a police officer?
So originally I started out as a special education teacher, and I was like, not my thing. And then when I went into ROTC and I got my scholarship, they said, we don't want teachers. You got to change your major. And I'm like, well, okay, criminal justice it is. So that's sort of how I got started. Okay. And then I really enjoyed it. We had a really good instructor down at Northeast Missouri doing the forensic part of it and doing the investigations and stuff like that, and had a lot of knowledge. And it just kind of piqued my interest. So that's kind of how I got the interest. And then my year group, instead of making a criminal justice major a military police officer, which would be a logical step, they decided we can take anybody and put them in whatever field, and we're going to show you that we can mold that person into that area. And so they put me in communications, where somebody that's more like an electronic engineer would be more suited for that. So, and I knew that's not what I wanted to do forever.
Yeah. So what would you tell a young person that's thinking about this career? What do they need to know? What are some things that they might do to confirm that this is a good career for them?
I would say go and get some education, get some life experience under your belt. I would say definitely come in, do ride-alongs, talk to the various, law enforcement is a big gammon. If you want to do the forensic part of it, then, go work in a lab. If you want to do probation and parole, go do internships or job shadowing programs, the school to work programs. If you want to be in corrections or be a correctional officer, go sit in the back and see what you can learn from them, and do the ride-alongs for us to see if that's truly what you want to do. I would say if you're a sensitive person, it's probably not the job for you to be a police officer. You kind of have to have a thick skin and let the words roll off your back, because most people, they're just upset or angry at the time, and that's not who they are normally. And you get them in a better situation and they're sober or not as angry, and they're usually pretty decent people. So yeah, but I think education and getting more maturity, I guess, it's a tough job, especially now with the political climate the way it is. I think having as much life experience coming into it, it helps.
Yeah, a little more maturity. Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah. And we did just hire an 18-year-old, and she's been fantastic. But I think she had a lot of life experiences behind her that made her that way. So
she had a tough upbringing.
Yeah.
That she had to come through.
Yep, and she's a fantastic officer. I'm not saying that we can't do it. We've hired 2 very young officers that have done very well in the department.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's a testament to who they are as people. Let's, and I want to touch on also how things have changed over the years. And we spoke together for another event, so gosh, I wish we had a long time to chat, but because she just has so many interesting stories. But talk a little bit about how things have changed over the years.
I would say the biggest thing, we used to have, when I first started, a very strong reserve officer. So people could come in, volunteer their time. We, as officers and the county attorney, would train them. The state has now mandated that they have to go through blocks of instruction with certified officers. They have to have so many hours in. So instead of volunteering their time, a lot of that time is dictated to education and getting their certification. So I think that it's kind of been a downfall. Because when I first started, our reserve officers, they would call on Monday to say, hey, I want a seat. You know, and it wouldn't be uncommon to have 2 or 3 reserve officers riding with every officer. And I'm like, hey, wait, we got to have one person for the bad guy. We have to at least be able to transport him to jail. You know, we can't kick somebody out on the curb to transport somebody. That's one thing that's changed. Technology has changed a whole lot. When I started with the police department, we didn't have computers. So now we have computers in the cars. We used to have take Polaroid pictures. Now we have digital, you know, and you have a SIM card, so you know if you got the picture or not, didn't get the picture. Technology has really gone off the charts.
Yeah.
I think older people like me, I don't like the technology. The other thing that I think of is that younger kids are used to the social media things, and they're not used to talking to people. So I say the other thing with young people is learn to talk to people, whether they're your peers, older people, younger people, people with different views from you. You know, I don't think that we have the communication skills what we used to have.
Good points. Yeah.
So,
and I'm sure you weren't wearing body cameras.
We weren't
30
wearing,
years ago.
No, we weren't wearing body cameras. It was optional for a bulletproof vest. You wouldn't get anybody to walk out the law center door without a bulletproof vest today.
Sure.
That we didn't have car cameras then. Handcuffing was optional when I started. It was whether they were being physically resisting or not. It was optional. We had flip-up cages, so the cages didn't necessarily stay up, and that the cage is a permanent cage. You're not flipping up the cage.
Interesting.
Everybody gets handcuffed unless you're a juvenile, but a juvenile can be handcuffed if they're being physically resistant and out of control.
Do you see more issues with teenagers now? Or is it maybe just different? Or
I would say it's different because, like, when I first started, the kids were out running the streets. They couldn't text, so you had to either call or walk over to someone's house. So I think it's easier for them to communicate, so you don't see them out and about as much. I think we had more arrests when I first started is what we do now, but I think they're just being smarter about it. So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I think one of the things that's changed is just maybe it's the attitude of the people, right?
Right.
And that's certainly been more in the more recent years. For me, it's been painful to watch because I've always had great respect for police officers, and in any industry, I don't care what it is, you're going to have a bad apple here and there.
Right.
But that does not and should not stain the whole industry.
Right.
And I feel that that has been really tough over the last few years. Maybe not so much here in our small town, but in the bigger cities, it's made it very challenging.
I think it's detrimental when you have people. Everybody's replaceable. I mean, anybody. If you have a knack and you want to do this job, you can do this job. We can train you to do this job, but the life experience, the background knowledge, the historical knowledge in the departments, the historical knowledge in the community, making the contacts, knowing who you can rely on or go to get information. When you have senior, like with myself, I'm replaceable, but that experience is going to be, that's what's hard to replace.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
And probably what comes with that is some gut feeling, you know,
right,
on certain things,
yeah,
right?
I mean, when you've done things, 40 or 50 times as opposed to once or never,
And reading people.
Right.
Are they telling you the truth? Are they not telling you the truth? You feel like there's something more in there.
Or knowing what to ask.
Yeah.
I think, for me it's second nature, and they're like, why is it so easy? And I'm like, because I've done it.
Yeah.
And it's repetitive. You get better. You go to depositions and you didn't ask the right question, and some attorney's trying to get off on a technicality, and you're like, oh, I'll know to ask that question the next time. So,
yeah. Can we briefly touch on what happened last week? I mean, I know we can't say probably a lot, but if we could just say the not the highlights, but just some brief facts. And the thing that I want to point out, and I brought this up at City Council, is that you and our officers were in a standoff situation with someone, and then we had to worry about just regular citizens coming to watch.
And
right?
and they kept encroaching
Right.
on the scene, and they don't know. They're putting themselves in danger, and then when we're worried about what they're doing and not paying attention to what's happening with the barricaded situation,
Right.
You're taking our focus away.
Exactly. So that's what I really want to stress is that, yes, we had to put something out, I know we put something out on social media about that there was no danger to the public from one standpoint, but it was a dangerous situation for people. Not only the person who was who had the challenge, but the officers, and they need their total focus on what they're doing, and this lasted for hours.
Yes, and I mean it's taxing. It's exhausting for the officers, and then we had to bring in the state TAC team to relieve the officers. When this is a prolonged thing, this is our main priority. And we had people that were calling in being upset that officers didn't get back to them. And I'm like, they were a little busy. And you have to understand that, when you got a small department, it takes everybody. We maxed out 2 departments, 3 with the state patrol to handle the situation. And basically what it was is we had a gentleman go and stab his downstairs neighbor twice. He fled. So we're trying to get medical care for the individual who was stabbed. When he fled, he didn't flee directly to his house. He ran around the back of the building. We finally located him upstairs and made contact with him upstairs. But, we're trying to get those people out, secure that, not get anybody hurt.
Sure.
And so, when we turned it over to the state patrol, I know that people we're literally trying to be like where our inner security was, so where we had it blockaded. And then we had people driving through alleys to get a better look. And I'm like, we don't have the time to stop. And, if you get in a crossfire, you're putting yourself at, in harm's way. And it's not fair to the officers to distract them. It's not fair to you to endanger yourself.
Yep.
And we finally got to the point where, I just turned around to somebody and I said, this is the line. If I turn around and I tell you again, you're going a half a block further back. And then they kind of got the message. But,
But you shouldn't even have to say that, in my view.
No.
People should, I know we're all curious. We want to see it, but just don't go there.
Right.
Just stay at home. You can find out about it later. And, it's just too dangerous. It's too dangerous for you as a person, as a civilian. It's too dangerous for our officers to have to be too distracted with what you're doing, and they need to focus on the business at hand.
And I don't think, with a 14-person department, 6 of our officers are on SRT, so they're doing entry and making that plan. 2 of us are the hostage negotiators, so that's our focus, which leaves only a handful of officers to try to maintain a perimeter.
Yeah.
So just stay back. Same thing with like a fire. Don't drive over the fire hose.
Good point.
Every situation, and we can't try these things in the media. I know with like the murder and this thing, people want to know every little detail. And I'm like, they have the right to have a fair trial.
Right.
So we can't publish every little detail in the newspaper. And I know that people get frustrated with that and they want to know, but we can't do that. We're going to jeopardize our case. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to lose our case because we're answering questions that we shouldn't be answering.
Sure. And
putting it in the media and trying it in the media.
Right.
So.
Yeah, these are all very, very good points. So please take notice to the public of what she's saying, and we're just pleading for your cooperation next time. And hopefully there won't be a next time, but at some point there may be.
Yeah.
So.
And what we try to do is either through the schools, depending on where our situation is, either through the schools or through social media, have somebody put out a brief statement that this is going on. So just avoid the area.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. We've talked about that. I really wanted to make those points to the public. So I want to go back to, okay, as a woman in this field, how do you feel it's been different for you? Now, you talked to me earlier and explained some of the things that were maybe easier for you to do than maybe a a man.
Yeah.
So can you touch on that? I found it to be really interesting.
So I would say chivalry is not dead. I would say I have gotten away with murder because it's like their mom's talking to them or their sister's talking to them. So they seem to respond better. And I guess physically I'm not a threat. I'm only 5'2". So I'm not a physical threat to somebody's masculinity. And so if I give them directives, they've seemed to comply for the most part. Mm-hmm. I mean, they may bellyache and stuff like that, but they seem to comply. If a male officer would have given them the same commands or directives in the same tone, it would have been a fight. So I've been very fortunate. I think that a lot of that is establishing relationships with people. Mm-hmm. If you're honest with people and you do what you say and you follow through and you get back to them, people will work with you. And I think when they have that trust with you, mm-hmm. I think it's hard now for like the younger officers because if I go on scene, then they want to talk to me. And I'm like, I like training wouldn't be beneficial for me right now because they want to talk to me and I'm like, no, you need to talk to them. They need to learn. Yeah. They need to learn. They need to get the experience to do that.
Well, one of the things I remember you saying is something like, if you're dealing with a male subject, right? And you said something about, well, we can do it the easy way or the hard way, right?
So I was on the field training program and we walk in and we have a guy that's like 6'4". He's a wanted subject. And I'm like, hey, are you such and such? And he goes, yes. I'm like, well, we got an arrest warrant for you. You're under arrest. And he goes, well, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, well, you got 3 choices. 1, you can resist and beat me up, and then you're going to be a woman beater. And then every deputy, police officer, and state trooper is going to be all over you, and you're still going to end up in jail, and you're going to be a woman beater. 2, I kick your butt, and that's not going to look very good for you. Or you stand up and put your hands behind your back. So he stood up, put his hands behind his back, and we walked out. And my field training officer is just like, I just can't believe that you said that. And I'm like, what did I say that was not true? And they're like, true. But they're like, that we can't say that. I'm like, I understand that, but I can.
Right.
And I'm not a physical threat to them,
Right.
So.
I mean, that's the perfect work smarter, not harder.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's a great story, and I just thought it was really it was fun. So yeah. So as you thinking of winding down your career, well, is there anything you're going to miss? Do you think?
I love the investigations. I love the chase. I love putting the puzzle together. That's my happy place. I mean, anybody on the department will tell you, put me in there and I'm good. I will miss that. I will miss the people that I work with. I've trained a lot of them or worked with a lot of different officers, a lot of different agencies. So I'll miss that camaraderie. Mm-hmm. But I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, and before we kind of start to wrap up, I forgot I wanted to come back to this. Every year, the City Council gets statistics, and we get to see, several years in a row and what things are going up and what things are going down. So, a couple of things that are up are assault, theft, vandalism, firearms, physical resistance, Is there anything that you want to point out? I mean, anything you attribute that to? Any trends that you're seeing in Fairfield, Iowa?
I would say the drugs are the driving force. The first 15 years of my career, I think we dealt with a handful of guns. You know, granted, we go on search warrants and every farmer, everybody. I mean, when we were in school, we had gun racks in the back of our cars.
Right.
And took guns to school. You know, if we did that now, the whole school would be on lockdown. So, I mean, there's a big trend there, but nobody had guns. Now people have guns. We're having people threaten people. We've had shootings in Fairfield. So, you know, the use of guns is up. You know, we're getting more intel that people usually that are in narcotics or users of drugs or carrying firearms to either protect their stash or to protect them. I don't know. But so the use of firearms is up. And I would say that people that are addicted to drugs or alcohol, I mean, that goes into the assaults because they're kind of hand in hand. They get drunk, they get high, they assault their significant others, they assault others. The thefts go hand in hand because they want to get their next fix, so they're stealing to get their next fix. The interference with official acts, I think the lack of respect for law enforcement as a whole now. We're going to make a stand. We're going to fight on the streets instead of fighting in the courtroom. I mean, that's not going to fly. You know, if you want to fight it in the court. Go get an attorney, fight it in the court. Let the body cams speak for themselves. And usually when they're under the influence, they're not making the best decisions. And I think, you know, the one thing with the technology, the body cams has been very, very helpful. You know, when I didn't do anything. Well, the body cams say differently.
Do you see more young kids doing drugs than used to be?
Yes. Younger and younger.
And do you
younger.
think that's a family influence, like parents are doing it so kids are doing it, or is it just a mix?
I think that if you grew up in a drug-addicted family where those parents, you know, it was never allowed in my family. I mean, my dad would have beat my butt, and I would have been grounded forever. And I think if you grow up in a family that they think that the use of marijuana or drugs up to a certain point are okay, then they're going to follow suit.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking you what you think of legalization of marijuana? I mean, that, you know, it seems to be getting more prevalent. I can just tell you, I for one am not in favor of it. Just so everybody knows, because I do think it's not good.
I think it's a gateway drug, regardless of what people say. I think that, like the states that have legalized, Colorado, their OWIs went up 300%.
Wow.
So they didn't, you know, you got a legal prescription for something, and how do you combat that? They're driving under the influence. It's like being drunk. You're going to say it's okay to drive while you're high? That's not right. The other thing is prescription drugs. I mean, the use of pills and people getting prescription pills seems to be abundant. You know, we had a guy pass out, not off, because he was on pain med 3 different times. He passed out in the bank parking lot. He passed out uptown on the square. We took his narcotics away because he was obviously abusing them, but he was behind the wheel. His attorney called. We had to give his prescription drugs back to him, and he nodded off in the Law Center parking lot with his foot on the brake and his car in reverse. And we couldn't arrest him because it was his prescription drugs.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's scary.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want my kid on the road with somebody
Yeah.
under the influence like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So as you wind down these last few months, what pieces of advice do you have? I'll say me, the city council, our staff, our police department. Is there any recommendations or things you'd like to see going forward, even though you might not be here? I know that's a I didn't prepare you for that question.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I think that I honestly think that we need more. The number of officers, our department numbers need to increase. We need more officers on the street. We need to have incentive to keep the officers here through pay or benefits or whatever. to keep them here, so we don't have the knowledge, we don't train them, and we're not a stepping stone to have them go somewhere else. I think the continuity is a great, big, huge asset that will never be replaced. I would say that we're going to have to keep up with technology, and to keep up with technology, it's pricey.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started, we used to have radios for like 10, 15 years. Now the technology is moving so fast that those radios are like a washing machine. They're good for 4 or 5 years, and you're replacing them.
Yep.
The technology, what the body cameras can do from when we first started till now. I mean, at first it was the car cameras, and now we can wear the body cameras. They have body cameras now that will, they'll what is it called when you, whatever is said, they will write your reports verbatim. Transcribe. There you go. I forgot the word. So they'll transcribe what the interaction is between the two individuals. So I think that those things are huge. Every 4 or 5 years, we're going to have to replace radios. We're going to have to replace car cameras. We're going to have to replace tasers. I think getting the officers trained to the basic level, and then continuing their education, because things change, things evolve. Keeping up with the legislative updates. Because there's things that we used to do when I first started, we're not allowed to do. If we arrested somebody in a car, we could search anything in that car within their reach, grasp, or lunge. So we pretty much had the whole entire car. Now, if we want to get in that car without exigent circumstances, we have to go get a search warrant. In order to have the dogs sniff a car, we can't delay that traffic stop more than what it takes to write the ticket. So if you're like me, using technology, that's going to be forever. But the young kids can do it pretty fast.
Yeah.
So, and I think that we're still going to have to teach the young kids how to do the paper tickets, because technology is going to fail.
Yeah.
We had to show them how to write a handwritten ticket. So you can't ever get away from some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that I think I was fortunate when I started, because I liked the forensic part, I liked the investigation part. And the people before me allowed me to take that and run. So I think that, the department that way is in a better place, but we're going to need to get the younger people trained into that.
Yeah.
We're going to need to get our investigator back. When you have a dedicated investigator
Yes.
That can handle those calls, the more serious calls,
that's really your role now, correct?
No. Yes, I'm the mentor. Yes. I'm
right,
the mentor.
but you're probably the most experienced at investigations.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
And
the forensic part of it.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and when we took pictures back in the day, we would go and smear fingerprint powder all over everybody's house. We called it happy dust. We'd go make them happy because it looked like we were trying, it looked like we knew what we were doing, but we didn't know what we were doing. Now we take fingerprints with refracted light. We don't have to use it. We don't use it. We'll super glue things, so we lock the print in. Technology-wise, you have to figure out, do you want DNA first or do you want fingerprints first? Because one affects the other. So you super glue something that you want to get DNA off of, you have to get your DNA first, so you don't super glue over the DNA. So there has to be a methodical thought process behind that.
And right now, we do not have a dog.
No.
What's the thought process with that? I haven't talked to the chief about that recently, and so just maybe you can update me what the thoughts are with the department.
So the one thing is, we got Eddie Felger left a grant to the city, so the equipment and the canine and the training is paid for with this grant money that was left by a retired police officer. So what we're doing now is we have sergeant's interviews coming up, and we're going to talk about the canine. Before, you had to live in the city or just outside the city, within 5 miles of city limits. Most of our officers live further out, so we're going to have to look at our policies and maybe amend our policies to say you can live outside these parameters. So we want to get somebody trained. We actually, long-term, maybe in the next 2 years, is get 2 people. So that way the one canine handler can be off and not be called out all the time, and minimize the amount of overtime and call-outs and taking away their family time. So hopefully in the next 2 years we'll have 2 dogs. With the sheriff's office having 2 dogs right now, that pretty much will take care of like 24/7 coverage for the most part.
And do we have drones?
The county used to have a drone. You have to have an FFA license to do that. EMA Federal is talking about getting a drone that's got infrared and can do some different things.
We budgeted for that at emergency management, so we are planning to have a drone program, if you will, or get a drone. But I didn't know at the police level.
No, we don't
have anything right now.
Nope. And I know that some of the tactical things, they've flown drones, like in the barricaded subject that we had last week. They flew other departments that have bigger budgets and more manpower have flew a drone up to the windows so they can try to see in, and have actually flown into, like we could have flown into his apartment and figured out exactly where he was.
Yeah.
So
interesting. So I mean, just for the public's knowledge, if there's anything that you want to donate to any of these things, so we can add that to our department, we'll gladly take that donation.
And then we used to have a bike patrol program, and it was very effective. We have some officers that are interested in bringing that program back. That went away when we got short. I thought it was a very effective program, and it was well received because a lot of people said they weren't as intimidated by somebody on a bicycle as a car. So they were more willing to come up and talk to us. I think the other thing that we've done well as a whole in the department is made a concerted effort to get in the schools, do the walkthrough with the schools. Every week the officers go through on patrol to every school, and the kids are used to seeing us there. And it's usually like if we have a major incident at the school, it's the parents freaking out because we're there with guns and whatever. And the kids don't think twice about seeing us that way because they see us all the time in there. And I think that that's been a very good thing for building rapport with the young kids. We've gone in and played basketball with them, soccer. If they have, we went to the bouncy houses when they have graduation little ceremonies or award ceremonies. We've gone to those things. So I think that community outreach has been a really good thing.
I agree. I totally agree. It's great to have some of those kids connect with you and have that rapport and respect, and also not be afraid. And
it's funny when we go to other community events though, they're like, why are you here? I went up to the farmers market and they're like, why are you here? And I'm like, just doing a walkthrough. There's a lot of people here, just making sure. And by the time you're there like 3 or 4 a week, and they're like, hey, how you doing? Just walking through. Yep, just walking through. And people, after a while, didn't think 2 things about it. But I'm like, they're freaked out the first time you do it. And I'm like, it's part of the community. It shouldn't be uncommon to see us. We go to the football games. We go to the Little League games. So.
So I think it's great. Well, let's kind of wrap it up. I mean, is there anything else that you want to share?
No, I would like to thank everybody. I mean, for me, anytime that we've ever asked for the community's help, like on any major investigation, the community has always came through. So, it takes a community to make this community better. So, it's been a good run. I think the department's better. My parents said, leave it better than how you got it. Hopefully I've done that. And, I appreciate all the help and support I've got from everybody throughout the years.
That's great. And we didn't mention that at one time you were police chief.
Yes.
So, and how many years did you do that?
I think 6.
6 years.
Yeah.
And then you wanted to come back to investigations, right?
Right. I mean, I had a young son, and having all the meetings. I mean, my kid thought his name was Hurry Up. I'm like, Cameron, hurry up, we got to go here, I got to go here, and it wasn't fair to him. I mean, he was still pretty young at the time, and, he, out of everything, I always say, he's my biggest accomplishment. He's a good kid. And being a cop's kid isn't easy. And if you know Cameron, you know that he's negotiated that very well.
So he's a good kid.
He is a good kid.
I really like him.
Yep.
So, job well done.
Thank you.
On being a mom and a parent. And job well done, serving our community. We thank you very much and wish you all the fun and joy in your retirement.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for listening again to our little dialogue.